Hi everybody, welcome back to the sewing room. This is Sojourns and my name is Chris. And today I'm starting a series about sewing tools. And I'm going to do a number of them in this series. And today I'm starting with pressing tools. I'm going to talk about what you need, what you don't need, what I like, what I don't like, how much money we should spend on these. I hope you enjoy this. If you have anybody on your Christmas list that is asking you to write down some things you might like for Christmas, this might be a good thing to peruse and see if you need or want any of those things, or maybe you're gifting them to other sewers in your life. But anyway, these are the things that I use in my sewing room. Let's start with pressing tools. Before we get into it, I just want to say that if you are a subscriber, thank you for always joining me on the channel. If you're not, just hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell. That way you'll get a notification when my next content is posted. And if you want to follow along in this series, you won't miss it. We're going to have a variety of things covered. All the tools, things that are necessarily sewing tools and things that are not necessarily sewing tools that I use in my sewing room. But today it's pressing tools. And you might have heard many times around the sewing community, if people will say, what's the important thing you would tell a brand new sewist? And it's press. Use your iron. Some will even say your iron is more important than your sewing machine. Well, that doesn't really work, because if you're not sewing it, you can't press it, but it really is important. So I'm going to start today by talking about irons. This is my iron. And here's my feeling on irons. There is a very big range of irons, and I'm talking about a price range of economical price range and very expensive, hundreds of dollars of irons. And here's what I have found. I have been sewing for 19 years, and here's what I have found. Don't spend the upper end on an iron. This is just my feeling. Now, I know there's probably many of you out there that love your high-end irons, and you'll say you've had it forever and your mother had it, and that's great and that's wonderful, and I believe you, and that's great. But there are a lot of things that we spend money on in the sewing room, and I spend my money more on the machine, the thread, those things on fabric, those things that I want that need to be of quality that get used so much. My iron gets used a lot, but it does one thing. So anyway, this is the iron that I'm using today. And it's just a sunbeam iron. And there are some things about an iron that I find are essential and some things that really aren't that important. I have seen high-end irons that when you put them down, the feet raise so that you can just leave it flat like this and not have to worry about burning anything or scorching anything. I don't find it necessary. I find it kind of one of those frivolous things that if you get it, it's kind of fun for a while, but it adds to the price and it's not necessary. I say get the iron you can afford. I've seen many people insist that they should get a certain brand, and I'm not going to knock any brand or whatever, but it ends up leaking in 2 years, and then you have rust everywhere and you're ruining your garments. So I bought this iron at Costco because I needed an iron. It was there and it was on sale and it had everything I needed. So what do you need in an iron? Okay, what you need in an iron is it must be able to give you steam, and a good burst of steam. So here's my steam button, and I have different settings here, of course, for synthetic fabric, silk, wool, cotton, and linen. So when you get into the cotton and linen, you're getting a good amount of steam. But this lever here also lets me adjust my steam. This is no steam all the way down to the highest steam, so I can go anywhere in between. And this button gives me a burst of steam. So when I really need to press out a wavy seam or something like that, or I've got an intense wrinkle on cotton or linen, an extra burst of steam will come. And that's what you want. So that to me is super important. Also the different levels. So you can use synthetic polyester fabrics, not worry about ruining them or hurting them. And then of course all the way up through your cotton and linen that tend to wrinkle very easily, that need a good hot iron. I also like a good amount of water reservoir. I don't want to be refilling this constantly. So I like that I can see it, and it's very easy to fill. I put it here. This came with a little pour thing, which I don't have here, so it's very easy to fill. Also, I find an automatic on and off is really nice to have. You know, I'll leave my iron on in the sewing room and I'm in and out all day. After 2 hours, it will automatically shut off totally. But if I leave this in this position or this position for 2 minutes, I'll get a little beep that says, hey, you know, your iron's on or whatever, and if you don't want it to shut off, just change the position, just move it. You know, that's nice, but a nice long cord is nice, but you can use an extension cord, that's fine. Anyway, I also like this particular sole plate because look at all the holes for the steam. So this is a very nice, I think it's called, yeah, this is a ceramic. I like the ceramic sole plate. So that's all I need. This was $30. I've had this iron for 3 years now and it still works great. For $30, you can't beat that. I had my other iron, which I think was I don't even remember the name, but something similar that I had for 10 years. And then it just started to leak and I thought, nope, time to replace it. I had only spent $30 on it. I had it 10 years. I don't want to find out in the middle of sewing up a gorgeous garment that I needed a new iron. All right, so that's my blurb on irons. The next thing we're going to talk about, which I find is an essential pressing tool in the sewing room, is a Tailors Ham. And down here on the table, I have two. It's called a pressing ham because it's shaped like a ham, like a dinner ham. And you'll see there are 2 different kinds of fabric on your pressing ham, and that's done on purpose. This is 100% cotton. You would use this on any fabric that you can use your high heat setting on and a lot of steam. So cotton, linen, you would use this side of your Tailors Ham. This is 100% wool or a wool poly blend, and you would use this side for your lower temperature fabrics. Things like wool, satin, even some of your polyester knits you would use on. The Tailors Ham is filled with sawdust, and that's because the sawdust will absorb the moisture. So when you're steaming, it'll absorb that moisture and your pressing will dry out and then it will hold the shape that you're going for. The shape is really important, and the reason that a Tailor's pressing ham is so important is because all of those princess seams, shoulder seams, curved seams of any kind that require us to press so that our sewing looks professional and finished off. You can't do that with a ironing board because it's straight and you can't get it into the curved seams. Okay, so it's curved like this so that you can get your curved seams around this, your shoulder seams. I use a Tailors Ham a lot for darts. Let me show you how that works. I've got a sample here. This is some cotton fabric, so suppose you are making a blouse and it requires a dart. So I've sewn in the dart, and you can see the dart's at an angle. It's not a straight flat seam, and it's going to curve if it's a bust dart around here or a waist dart. So you sew your dart and then you'll open it up, and your dart always gets pressed down. So you'll put that here over the curve so that it curves nicely. Here we go. And then you'll take your hot iron and you'll just press your dart around the curve of the Tailors Ham because our body curves there and you want your dart to curve as well. So that's perfect for that. Okay, now you don't even have, it's not just for construction. You can also use your Tailors Ham to press your garments that you're going to be wearing out. So here I have a jacket and here's a shoulder. So I would take my ham and get it right in that shoulder seam there. And now I can keep the curve of that shoulder seam while I sew. If I tried to sew this on a flat ironing board, if I tried to put my ironing board in there, I would end up getting folds because this is a curve, not flat. So that's perfect for that. Also, if you're sewing and pressing princess seams, those are the seams of a garment where you have opposite curves meeting, concave and convex curves meeting, so it's curved. You would lay this over your tailor's ham and you would press it in that way. And so another place where tailor's ham comes in. Very handy. Collars are curved, and we want to press those so that we maintain that beautiful curve around the back of the neck. And even here, it's a curved angle. Our bodies are not flat. And so you use your ham, you press here, good amount of steam, let it cool, and it's going to hold your curved seam beautifully. So this is essential. You can make tailor's hams. I've seen patterns for them. I think they're inexpensive, and I wouldn't go to the trouble of trying to sew this closed and get the sawdust. I actually found this tailor's ham, I found two, wrapped in plastic, brand new, Goodwill, $1.99. I kept one and gifted it to a sewing friend, the other one. Okay, here's another tailor's ham I just want to show you. This one's much bigger. Same idea, wool and cotton. This one's very dense. Oh, one last really cool thing you can do with this. Suppose you have a long string or some bias tape that you need to press, but it kind of gets away from you and you need to pull it. Here's just a sample of something. You take it and you can take a pin this into your ham. You can pin right into it. It's fabric and sawdust. And now you are free. You have a free hand. You can pull this and you can iron it. Or suppose you have a couple of these and you're trying to braid something. It's a third hand. Super handy in the sewing. Next tool is like a 3-in-1. This is a pointing tool and a clapper all in one. What's a clapper? What's a pointing tool? Okay. A clapper, you might have seen where this top portion isn't on here. It's just this rounded bottom portion. It's made of wood and it's a pressing tool. What it does is the wood absorbs moisture. And so here I have some cotton, and it's made from wood because it will help with the steaming and the pressing. It'll absorb the moisture that you can use a lot of steam. Okay, so quilters use these a lot. Or if you're doing collars or cuffs. So here's my fabric, and suppose I've made a seam and it's just not as flat as I'd like it to be. Or if you're quilting and you're doing maybe a bunch of points that come in like a star where you have a lot of intersections and you're ironing it, you're pressing it, but it's still not laying as flat as you'd like. What you would do is you would steam this and then put your clapper on top and press. And that will press the steam and the heat into your fabric and you'll get a beautiful, sharp, crisp seam. You can even do it like this. That's why it's called a clapper. You can kind of clap it down and then press and hold. All right. Now, the pointing tool part of this is for collars or cuffs. This is awesome. So I've just taken a little seam here. Suppose this is your collar or your cuff. You're going to take it and look at that. If that's your collar, you know, you have a point on the end of your collar, this will get right in there. I didn't cut that off on me. Right in there. And you just take your iron and you iron right here, right into that cuff, and you take it off and you have a very crisp cuff. This flat part is also awesome for pressing 1/4-inch seams, 1/2-inch seams, 5/8 of an inch seams open. So if you've if you have a seam and you want to press it open, you would put it along here and you can just run your iron right on this board, especially if you've got like a 1/4-inch seam. I just find this to be super handy for that. So again, these things you can even find in thrift stores, again in Goodwill. I actually found this in Goodwill. There were 3 of them. They were marked $1.97 because no one at Goodwill knew what they were. I got all 3. I took them up and they said, "Would you please tell us what this is? We've been taking bets in the store. What is this?" I explained to them what it was. I have 2 in my sewing room and I gifted one to a sewing friend. That's a great deal, but you can buy these on Amazon and I think it might be about $20 or something like that. So this is the 2-in-1. You can just get the clapper portion that's just the bottom if you want. All right. Next pressing tool that I find essential are these little thumb and finger guards, okay? Steam burns. And these are the bomb, okay? So you put these over your finger. There's one thumb size, there's other finger sizes. And you're pressing away and you're pulling your bias tape or your little, open seam here, and you are steaming the bejesus out of your fingers, and it hurts. This is fabulous. They're silicone. So this for me is essential. They come in a 3-pack and they're pretty inexpensive, and I'll link all these things down in the description box. I will explain all these things again down in the description box. These are the bomb. Okay, the Drit's Easy Straight Hem. You can press a curved hem, and it has all of the measurements on it on this side and then larger ones on this side. So you would put it down on your garment, press it up. If you're doing a curved hem, you'll just follow that for 5/8, 1/4 inch, 1 1/2. Turn it over here, you have 5/8 again, and on. Or a straight hem. Press it, and then you're good to go. Here's the thing. This gets really hot. It's metal. I don't love it. It gets hot. You can make the same thing out of cardboard. And I've even seen plastic on the market and cardboard. And I know these are really popular. And if you love yours, that's great. Please don't be mad at me. But it gets hot and I don't love it. Okay. But I can make it out of cardboard and I love it just as well. Or plastic or whatever. And here's a larger one. This is for drapery. So if you're not a garment sewer, or maybe you do both, this has much deeper hems. So this will be a 1/2 inch, and then you can go 1, 1 1/2, whatever. And I've made my draperies in my home, and this was really great because it has the wide hem, and it's also very big. So if you're doing a wide window, you only have to move this like 2 times. And because it's so big, you can really keep your fingers out of the way of this easier. When you're only doing, 5/8 of an inch, your fingers are on that one a lot more. This is not technically a pressing tool. This is your run-of-the-mill $1 sewing gauge. That's 6 inches, and you have this little guide here, so you can measure your 1/4 inch seam, your 1/2 inch seam, whatever you're doing. But I call it a pressing tool because, so I've got my skirt or blouse or pants or whatever it is I'm hemming. I'm going to come down here. And I just turn it up to where I mark, take the gauge, and I say I want to do a 1 inch hem. I put it on the 1 inch mark, and I come here and I bring it up and I press it and I go, and then I come to the center and I press it and I go. So it's like the Drit's Easy Hem, but it doesn't get hot because it's only this one little thing. I use this, and then I'll measure my hem just like this. So I might measure my hem like this and press it, and measure it here and press it. I have 4 of these in my sewing room. They're like $1. I keep at least 1 under every sewing machine, 1 by my iron. I'm misplacing them all the time too, but they're really cheap, so I get a lot of them. This is a sleeve board. But I also found this sleeve board at Goodwill for $1.99. It's a freestanding sleeve board. It's wonderful. You can take it closer to your machine if you're going to be doing a lot of little sewing or pressing over there if you want, or if you just need to press the sleeve. It won't fit into the end of your large ironing board. So this is really handy. I wouldn't say it's essential, but if you're doing garment sewing and you're doing cotton blouses and things like that, it's a little handy thing to have. And if you find these, in thrift stores and stuff, why not? So this is a sleeve board. I love this product. Best Press. This is Best Press. So what it says on here is it's a clear starch and sizing alternative. So, you've got a big old piece of cotton and it's not wanting to unwrinkle very easily. Or things like polysatin, chiffon, rayon challis. They just need a little starch to keep them from moving around when you're trying to cut them or sew them and they're getting wonky and out of shape. All you do is, it's not an aerosol, but you just like this, and then you press it, and it's smooth, and it has a little bit of starch. Now the starch washes out, but it's just enough so that it stays square and nice, and you can just work with your fabric without fighting with your fabric. It comes in different, I want to say flavors, but that's not right. Fragrances. It comes in different fragrances. This is scent free. I just prefer that, but they have lavender and other lovely fragrances. And I think you can buy it in a 3-pack on Amazon. I just got the one because this is a lot, and I don't use it that much. One other thing you'll need in your sewing room is a pressing cloth. If you have a delicate fabric and you don't want to scorch it or mark it or mar it in any way, you want to use a pressing cloth. Now you can buy pressing cloths, or you can do what I do, which is I use 100% muslin cotton for my pressing cloth. I think silk organza might be another thing that people use as a pressing cloth. And there are also pressing cloths that are Teflon, and I have 1 or 2 of those, so your iron glides right over it, but you're protecting your fabric is the idea. And also when you're ironing, interfacing onto something, you're going to want to put a pressing cloth on it. So I have 100% muslin. This is a good muslin. It's a tight weave, and it's all natural, and I use this as my pressing cloth all the time. So you put your fabric underneath, your pressing cloth on top, and steam it and press it. Okay? And here's just another piece. So I have, scraps of muslin around. All right. Those are my essential pressing tools. So pressing is really important. The more you press your seams, the more professional they'll look, the easier it will be to work with your seams after you press them. And pressing actually sets in your stitches. So when you press, you're not ironing. Just when you press, suppose even you've taken your cotton fabric, poly cotton fabric, out of the washer and dryer, and you want to iron it. What you don't want to do is distort your fabric by pushing and doing it. You want to lightly press. So hold and press, press and hold. And then once it gets really nice, you can just smooth it out with a light touch, but never push it. You don't want to distort your fabric. Happy sewing, happy pressing. I'll see you for part 2 of our series next time in the sewing room.